All right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Raw and Relentless. Alex, thanks for joining me, man.
Thank you for having me here.
Why don't you give the audience a little intro, what you're doing, what you're about, and what's new in Alex's life?
So I'm the CEO of Regal.ai. So we build AI agents for enterprises. So it replaces sort of the way in which they're actually talking with customers. So instead of having to wait on hold for 4 hours or wait for somebody to call you back, there's always an AI agent available, across calls, text, emails, chat. Um, my background, really, I started as a product manager and a marketer, and slowly sort of really enjoyed my time in startups and took on more and more responsibility. And eventually, 4.5 years ago now, I guess, took the plunge and started my own company. And that's been a lot of fun for me.
That has gotten to be very popular in the business world with these AI agents, sitting on the website or even handling sales calls nowadays. It's pretty
Yeah,
crazy.
it's interesting. Like I haven't seen any that do the, for somebody who's an AI evangelist, it's funny that I'm negative on some use cases, but I guess I'm just realistic. I have not seen any AI just do like software sales well. I don't think that's what it does well.
Mm-hmm.
I think what it does well is like right now, like mimic human conversation, do sort of tier one support interactions, basic sort of sales qualification. That stuff does well. But the things that like it can't do well yet, for instance, is like talk with multiple people. It gets a little confused, or
Mm-hmm.
handle like very high emotional conversations where perhaps like the person is considering something really really dangerous. Like you don't necessarily want AI on that. So
Mm-hmm.
eventually perhaps it'll be there, but just today it isn't. So a lot of what we're doing with organizations is talking through what are their very high volume use cases that are relatively repetitive, where you don't need to be constantly hiring back humans that are churning and because they don't like the role 50% a year. Focus on getting that tier one stuff done by AI agents. So the humans you hire like their role, love the company, spend their time focused on higher order things, and you really improve the customer experience at a lower cost.
So are you guys able to do like say booking appointments, right? A lead comes in and then using AI to book a sales appointment for whoever, like a sales manager.
Yeah. So, basically, other than the things I said they're not good at today, the rest, yeah. So, like, very common use cases, like I said, are all the on support side, replacing IVRs, handling all the normal, where is my stuff? How do I do this? Basic questions, does very
Mhm.
well. On the sales side, qualification, transfers to a human, scheduling, an appointment or a call, great. And then there's a lot of operational use cases like payments and collections and reminders and stuff like that.
So I'm curious, do you guys track like some of your metrics in terms of booking appointments when a lead comes in? What kind of percentages of that convert?
Yeah. So again, we don't work in B2B. This is all consumer businesses.
Hmm.
So,
Yep.
let's say it's a insurance company where historically lead comes in and the licensed salesperson had to get on and do it. And maybe they tried offshoring that. What happens now instead is an AI agent gets on first and goes through, where are you from? What's your net worth? What's your income? How old are you? Whatever the questions are. And
Hmm.
then if they're qualified, pass it to the human. What we see is that the performance is almost identical to humans. CSAT is between 85 and 95%. The rate of people sort of asking for human is only about 3% of the time. So it's actually the containment is very good on our AI
Wow.
agents. The average time on call is pretty similar. The AI calls are a little bit faster, but it's pretty similar. Um, the rate at which they're converting to that transfer is very similar to humans, sometimes a little
Hmm.
higher, sometimes a little
Hmm.
lower, but broadly the same. And the biggest thing is it's a tenth the cost. Like instead of a human being at whatever, $30 an hour in the US, you're paying an AI agent who, uh, doesn't have to be trained constantly, doesn't have to be constantly, you know, uh, um, uh, uh, incentivized with a drink at the bar or
Yep.
whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're happy on every call to do the thing. And there's things that AI agents are just wildly better at than humans. So when people talk quietly or they speak in an accent or they go in loops, the AI agent understands it all and is never upset and is always happy to chat. Humans like on those calls like get frustrated, hang up on the customer,
Yeah.
tell them
Yeah.
like I don't understand. Like actually, it's quite easy for AI. And then AI also is omniscient, right? Anything you give it access to, it knows about. All your
Hmm.
knowledge bases, what's
Hmm.
happening in sports. Like, and it's able to in real time use the information you know about the customer and personalize that call in a way humans can't. Humans
Mm.
just are terrible at. It's very hard if you're going from call to call to like look up everything and know. They'll go, oh, I see you. You know, a human might say, you've done 2 calls with us. AI will go, oh, I see you talked with Sally last week and she solved your issue, and Bob told me to follow up with you about this thing. You know, way, way at a different level than what humans can do.
That's actually so one of my businesses is I own gyms, and that's a huge I think where the industry is going is because if you're familiar how the gym sales structure
Yeah.
works, a lead comes somebody fills out a lead form on, a Meta ad, a Google ad, right? For a free pass or whatever, interested in the club. And then that flows into our email and text marketing cadence, right? And then we have to wait until that lead actually comes in to put them on a tour or whatever. But if you could have AI, like as soon as that lead form is filled out, have AI immediately call them and be like, "Hey, let's get you scheduled for a tour." Blah 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 blah. Find out what their
Yeah.
pain points
Or
are.
I'll give you like exactly an example. The pain points is the thing. Like, don't just call them and like have some center in whatever a third, some country
Yeah,
far away go, well,
yeah.
come in now, schedule. No, have the agent go and say, hey, what are you here for? You want to lose
Yeah.
weight? You want to gain mass? You want to get in shape? Like, what is the
Mhm.
thing? Okay,
Mhm.
here's kind of what I think a program would look like. Are you doing that yet? Like, what's your blocker? Like, I'm not saying that they're going to be the best salesperson, but just understanding people's motivations and doing basic objection handling, AI is great at that.
And so your guys' platform can do it via text or voice?
Text, voice, chat, email. Yeah. The one that
Mhm.
we're really investing in, though, like the future, in our opinion, is voice. So historically, like when I ran contact centers, we are always told, don't do voice. Like it's the most expensive thing. Like, hide the phone number. It was
Mhm.
always a game. And I understand why. It was so expensive to do voice interactions, and it was much cheaper to do text. And it was like even possible or impossible to have chatbots on sort of text-based channels, which I always thought were terrible, but it existed. Now we have voice agents that are cheaper than any other channel. So actually, voice became the cheapest channel. Well, that's
Mhm.
interesting. So like, if it's the cheapest channel, why am I hiding it? Why don't I put it everywhere? So that like
Mhm.
somebody's in the gym and they're like, I don't know how this machine works. They just like
Mhm.
start talking to whatever and they're going, how do I use this machine? Can you show me? Like, show me a little video, and it just like engages. So now that voice is the cheapest, it really changes the dynamic for what kind of experiences you could create, and you can go from a world where even if brands didn't say it explicitly, like you were kind of telling somebody, I don't care about you. Like, I don't care about you enough to talk to you. Go do
Mhm.
this thing by yourself. To a world where every customer feels like, wow, that brand cares about me and I'm going to be loyal to them now and stay at that gym, for instance, because,
Mhm.
I was able to reach them anytime.
It's interesting that you think that voice is more predominant than, any kind of messaging because I feel like, especially the younger generation, they grew up on texting and DMs, and they'd
Yeah, it
never really
depends. It
talked.
depends which generation you're on, actually. So there was a generation that went very heavy texting, anti-voice. What's interesting is the youngest generation now is heavily into voice because they
Really?
grew up on Siri, on Alexa, on voice
Ah.
apps, where it's true actually that you talk faster than you type. So the ones that grow up natively, where they have never experienced bad calls and bad whatever,
Mhm. Mhm.
they're just gonna go and oh, I can't get in my Airbnb. Where's my key? They're not gonna go and find the text and text it them. They're just
Right.
gonna speak it. And
Sure.
it'll say, oh, your key is hidden behind the whatever third fern on the right.
Mm.
That's the change. Is actually once it's always available, it's omniscient, it's high quality. Why would you ever bother typing anything? Sure, if you're in a
Sure.
meeting or something, maybe there'll be times where you need to
Yeah.
also have it. I'm not saying it'll go to zero, but
Yeah.
voice will be the main interactive channel.
So how is your platform structured? Does it integrate with third party softwares like other CRMs like HubSpot, Salesforce, websites? That's how your product is kind of
Yeah.
used.
So, every company we work with, and we tend to work with very large businesses, they have a CRM, they have software for talking to customers on the phone, they have whatever other tools internally. We don't touch any of that. So we natively integrate into all the major systems, and the ones that are not major, like the custom systems, they use our API to send data back and
Mm,
forth. So that is one of our strengths for sure, is that we can just sit alongside it. Second, I'd say we're very good at A/B testing. So don't just like go in and turn this on like, hey, that's not the point. Like, and I think people's first inclination is, oh, I'm going to turn this on for a very small use case, which is also wrong. What you
Mm-hmm.
should do is go pick your biggest, most important thing that's going to, that's the most volume and the most cost, and turn it on for 1%. And maybe do like, an ABC test percent, and make that are 1%, 1%, 1%. And very support, or your human agents that are doing sales, and
Mm-hmm.
then move up. So the value of that is that you can test on something that's very small, but if it works, it can have a massive impact on your business. Whereas if you do the like overnight calls that I get 2 a week, even if it works, who cares? And then you'd have to start all over again for the next use case. So that ability to A/B test is very important across humans versus AI, different AI agents, different channels. And then, yeah, like I said, particularly on voice, we've invested in it. I will say that it is possible for customers to come online and use us or other products to self-serve. And in the smaller companies, you see that a bit. We're not seeing AI agents get to the success rates that we think are necessary when they do it themselves. So the only way we get to our success rates is we work with larger customers where we offer professional services, right? We have a forward
Mm-hmm.
deployed engineer who goes and works with them and takes it from like 80% to 100%. So
Mm-hmm.
without that, yeah, sure. Can you get an AI agent that kind of talks and answers the basic stuff? Sure. But you're not getting to 97% containment rates on your own. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of tricks still in this. It's still early days. I think, give it a year or two, and yeah, there'll be more stuff worked out. But the underlying LLMs are imperfect still, are highly variable. And so there's a lot
Mm-hmm.
of stuff that we need to do as the application layer on top of them that you need to understand as you're building prompts for AI agents.
I was just going to say that as this progresses, as AI progresses, it'll probably get to the point where AI will just be able to implement itself.
Yeah, and it's we do have those concepts. So as we find out something, so there's a weakness in this speech to text model where it doesn't transcribe this kind of thing so well, so we have to make sure we're asking for it twice or validating it. Or there's a weakness in the LM where if you give it 3 steps without telling it this, it's going to loop, and so you have to always tell it it's 3 steps. Or there's a weakness in this model, or hey, this model sometimes it's very low latency, but it slows down at certain times of day, so we have to have the model also hosted ourselves in certain situations. Like there's all these tricks where we fill in the gaps around. Like I'll give you a silly one, but LMs are very bad at knowing the distance between two places.
Mm,
So what we do is we build separate functions where if a customer asks, "Oh, how far are you from my house?" or something like that, the LLM doesn't answer that. OpenAI doesn't answer that. We answer it separately and then tell the agent what to say. So
gotcha.
I think, as to your point, once we document all that, could an AI then use what we've documented to build a script or a prompt? Of course. But
Hmm.
it's about figuring out all these nuances in each of these different technologies.
So I currently use HubSpot as my CRM for the gyms. Do you guys integrate with HubSpot?
Yeah, we do.
Awesome. And can you, with your platform, can you segment your contact base on some of those parameters like age? Like you were saying, the younger are more into the voice than and
Correct.
be
Yeah.
able
So
to
there's all kinds
program it.
of nuance that you can get into. Like the reason we got into this is historically the way companies thought about the contact center was really suboptimal. Basically, they treated
Mhm,
everybody the
mhm,
same,
mhm,
and it wasn't their fault. Like the tools that a lot of people were using resulted in that. The beauty of a platform like us and AI agents on top of a platform like us is that once we know all this information, it's trivial to say, hey, based on their net worth, do something different, or based on where they live, do something different, or based on, like maybe they're in New York, like talk about a different sports team than if they're in Boston. It becomes trivial because that is just an attribute on that user. And then it's an attribute you're giving to the AI agent who now is able to customize the conversation.
gotcha. What about, because one pain point for a lot of businesses is leads that become uninterested after so much time, right?
Hmm?
Uh, can AI help kind of re-engage your AI, help re-engage a lot of those
Yeah, it's a
lost
very
leads?
common, yeah. I will say usually what ends up happening is there's two types of org. One is already doing it all, but they just want to automate the thing they're doing. So it's not going to necessarily increase the number of leads you're getting. It's just going to make it operationally easier. And there's
Sure.
another type of business where for one reason or another, it's fallen off the plate. Hey, we were too busy on other things, or hey, we forgot to do it this month. where then having AI agents do it is net increasing revenue because these are leads that weren't being chased. And yeah, the AI agent can go chase with email, SMS, calls, and get the person back engaged again. So whether or not it drives revenue depends kind of which bucket you're in, but for sure it's operationally easier.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. What is how is your platform priced? Is it flat or is it based on number of interactions?
Per minute. So what we find is that's the best way to align everybody's interest. So if it's but usually between 10 and 20 cents per minute for the AI agent to be on the phone, versus somebody in the U.S. would cost 80 cents to a minute, 80 cents to a dollar per minute to be on the
Mm-hmm.
phone. So that way, if you're using it, you pay for it. If you're not using it, you don't. So we have businesses that are highly seasonal, where in the summer they historically had to hire 200 people and then fire them. They don't anymore, right? They just use the AI in the times where they have more volume. Or we work for big insurance companies, where they were insuring homes, and all of a sudden there's a hurricane, and their claims department couldn't handle the volume, and wait times are going crazy. Now you just turn on AI agents, and you're able to handle that volume instantly. So it really changes the operating of a large business when you are not completely dependent on human labor to do some of these tier one calls. Are you still going to be dependent on human labor for more complicated things? Yes. Like there are definitely certain situations where you're going to need it. Are you still going to need managers who really understand this? Yes. But
Mm-hmm.
instead of them being bogged down by hiring and firing and training, they're going to be able to spend their time thinking about, okay, that feedback we got last month, that when we told them about the new package, they thought we were more expensive than the guys next door. Maybe let's go do some analysis of what the pricing is in our area to see what the first offer should be, and that's what'll drive more conversion. Like, I don't know, it
Mm.
just leaves time for different kinds of thinking instead of, wait, no, I don't have somebody, I have to go hire somebody and train them. Like, and you have no time to think about the pricing.
How long does it normally take to stand up your product in someone's operations?
Yeah, so look, to get an AI agent 80% of the way there, just the prompting is, I don't know, an hour, whatever. That's simple. The hard
Wow.
part, oh yeah, I could do it in 5 minutes. But the hard part is two things. Is one, going from 80% to 100%. That's hard
Mhm,
and can
mhm,
take days or even a week or two to go back and forth and make sure that it's handling all these things well. And then the
mhm.
other hard part is integrating with the systems that are necessary inside the company. In theory, if all your systems are ones we have native integrations with, like you have Salesforce and whatever, great, it's faster. But everybody has custom systems, or there's something that doesn't, oh, the data isn't in the system it's supposed to be. That's then more work for the customer to make sure that we're able to have the agent can have access. Because think historically you had human agents, and so you made everything available in like a website for the human agents to click on a refund or see the information.
Mhm,
With
mhm.
AI agents, right, that like you don't need a browser. What you need is an API. Like you need some kind of
Yeah.
programmatic way to do it. So all the work people did historically to make things easy for human agents is not the work you need to do to make it easy for AI agents. And if you want to go like even one step crazier, there's a video that's been going around where what happens basically when like two AI agents realize they're talking to themselves.
I
So
saw that.
who saw this? Like, there's, if we're AI, and then the person who calls in uses their AI to call in
Mhm,
instead of
mhm.
like they're calling in themselves. Maybe the AI doesn't even need to like talk English. Maybe they can just like shoot data back and forth to each other, and it's even faster. So there's
Yeah.
fascinating follow-on impacts to this.
That video was crazy. I couldn't believe that.
Yeah,
And
it was
and it
great.
was
It
like
was
a
fun.
screeching sound, right? I forgot what that's
Yeah,
called.
yeah, they've picked some weird sound, but it is the idea that businesses are gonna in the future, instead of like today, instead of thinking about how you sell to a human, in the
Mhm.
future businesses are going to be selling to robots basically. That's going to change the entire way that they present websites, they present information.
That's so mind-blowing to me. It's such a shift.
Yeah.
Um, Now you were saying too, like, for implementation, you guys charge for the implementation as well?
No, we offer it for free because again
Oh.
it's needed and we don't want people not taking it, so we just offer free implementation.
So what is it on average, what is a typical how many minutes does a conversation usually last with through your platform?
There's enormous variability depending on the customer, right? We have customers where it's 30-minute conversations, and we have other customers
Mm,
where it's 30-second conversations. So there's
mm.
not necessarily a norm. It entirely depends on the use case.
It's interesting. Man, I want to try this out now. I think
Yeah,
this could work.
there's a funny one. If you go to regal.ai/dog, we made this whole experience where you can talk to an AI dog, just to
Hmm.
show off how you can actually give each of these agents an attitude. So each different dog breed has different attitudes and likes and dislikes, and you can, because the point is it's not a robot. Like you're
Hmm.
actually giving it a personality.
Are you guys using OpenAI's LLM, or are you leveraging other ones too?
Yeah, we're agnostic, so we use a bunch of different ones, and we also allow people to bring their own if necessary. The only mistake I'd say these days is we see some people over investing in like a custom one based on like old technology, and you're losing because there's billions of dollars being invested in these newest models. Make sure that you're on a platform that can use the newest models, because that's going to be so much better than even a fine-tuned model from 2 years ago. So yeah, like it's our job to make it possible for you to, same thing for voice providers, same thing for ASR providers. Like we are agnostic to them, so you can always be on the latest one.
What is the biggest difference between between ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or whatever that Elon's is called? What's the
Yeah,
big difference between them all?
so it's not like a, there's not like a quick quip I can give you. Basically, the if you think about the end uses of each model are quite different. So some models are built for heavy research, in which case latency doesn't matter as much, but understanding information matters more, and figuring out how to handle it when there's conflicts, and that matters more, and so it's more trained in certain areas. Other models, like the ones we use, are much more about latency. It matters the speed in which you're able to get back to somebody, not the depth in which you're able to do research. So depending on the goal of a model, the way in which you build it will be different. Um, so a lot of what we're doing is understanding the purpose of each model, right? Understanding what it's good at, what it's bad at. Like I said, where there are flaws. All of them have flaws. Like that's just part of how this works. And then what we need to build around it to make the experience for a customer feel seamless. So the customer is not feeling those problems. So maybe as an example, the main model we use for having a conversation is often OpenAI 4.0 mini these days, but it's not good at research. Or it's not good at math. So if math needs to be done, we often handle it, or in the future perhaps we'll have a separate LLM handle that once the LLMs get
Mm-hmm.
better at it.
Mm-hmm.
So the customer will never know that we use different LLMs or different functions, because they
Mm-hmm.
hear the same voice throughout, but under the hood there's a lot of different things happening. So there's yeah, I'd say these days most the best sort of price versus quality trade-off for the real-time voice LLM, sort of text-based LLM that's used for real-time voice is probably OpenAI for a mini. In terms of voices, the best voices that people are using these days are OpenAI has very good ones, 11 Labs, Cartesia, PlayHT. Those are some of the ones that are pretty common, but every month there's a new provider, so like it's constantly changing.
Mm. I was going to ask about that latency in a conversation. So when a lead is having a conversation with somebody on the phone, what's the latency like when they ask a question or they're answering a question before AI responds? Because it used to be back in the day, it would be
Yeah, it was terrible.
it was terrible. It was a few seconds.
Yeah, so basically, human conversation, like turn taking, is anywhere from 500 milliseconds to a second, depending on the context and exactly how it works. The AI right now consistently is under a second, if you're doing it right. Uh, it can get down to 600 milliseconds or so, 700 milliseconds. So it's not all the way to the 500. Like when you hear like very fast turn taking in human conversation, the AI isn't quite there regularly, but it definitely is getting close. The problem isn't like the average. The problem is they call it P90, like the 10% worst.
Mm,
A lot of these models during certain times of day or certain periods get busy, and then it slows down. And so part of our job is to make it so that our customers don't experience that increase in latency in that 10% worst. So we host the models in multiple places. We have multiple providers so that we're able to switch off any ones that are slowing down to make sure we're on the ones that are faster at that moment, because there's just not stability yet in the LLM and voices. There will eventually be, but today there isn't.
what drives that? Is that Is that going to be faster chips? Is it going to be faster LLMs? Is it going to be faster internet speeds? What's really driving that?
Yeah, so you've called out the major ones, right? So if you're doing just a demo like on your computer, then
Mhm.
all of the lag of the phone system in the United States isn't doesn't show. So when I do demos, I always do them live. I'll actually like call the number from my phone so you can truly see what it's like on a call because that lag is real. Like that's part of what exists. So
Mhm.
if there's like a delay, when you're talking to your friend and there's a delay in that call, like that obviously is going to impact you if it's an AI as well. I'd say today, but that's a different piece of it. If you separate that, um, I'd say a big part of it seems to be uh, that the models, when working perfectly, in theory, can be at that 500 to 700 millisecond response time. But a lot of there's constant bugs and overuse and sort of something's wrong. Like there's just, like I said, there's just not stability in the system yet.
Mm.
Even though OpenAI is a $300 billion company, it's not a stable product to work
Mhm.
on. So I
Mhm.
think as those products become more stable and they build the tools internally to make it more, make the P90 much better, so to speak, then it'll be fine. So I don't think it's that they can't reach the really high quality. It's that it's not high quality through, always. So it's about, flattening that curve.
How far out do you think that they are from that?
The problem is that they're constantly coming up with new models. So like, if they were like going to stay on one model, a year they'd be fine. But if every 6 months they come out with a new model, every new model has new problems that they haven't necessarily figured out that cause new. So like, this is where it'll be interesting to see what people optimize for. Do they optimize for the newest model that may have new capabilities but has more, worse latency in certain situations or is less reliable, or do they stick to the older one where maybe it becomes more reliable? I don't know. So it's part of what we work on with our clients. Depending on their use cases, they optimize for cost versus latency versus the quality of the LLM.
I will say, I mean, I use ChatGPT all the time out of all the models, and I have seen that the response rate to prompts or questions is dramatically better than what it was even 6 months ago on the same
Yeah.
model. Um,
Yeah, if nothing, yeah, exactly. If nothing changes, this stuff gets better at an extraordinary pace. The chips get better, the way in which they're doing the queries get better, the training gets better. They realize what's wrong with it. But yeah, you know, when you keep making changes, it's hard. It's a moving
yeah,
target. That's
no.
all. And
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
don't. Again, I think OpenAI is making the right decisions to go for innovation over stability. I think that's the right decision today. And then it's
Mhm.
just our job for our clients to pick up some of the slack on the stability because when one of our clients has a 200-person team that they whatever no longer have and now it's AI, that AI has to work. Like you cannot have a situation which is down. OpenAI is not dealing with that, but we are. Like we have to
Yeah.
make sure that is up no matter what.
Yeah. I was recently telling a friend of mine this story. I've been dealing with this vendor that is trying to stick me to a contract that I signed on some services that they were going to provide that they could not perform on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I told them back in November of last year, like, look, and their rep even admitted like that they couldn't provide what I needed. I said, okay, well, then you just got to let me out of the contract. And they're like, yeah, okay, well, we'll get that into our billing team and we'll get that sorted out. Well, here we are 6 months later,
Yeah.
and they still haven't handled that. And one of their reps from another team reached out to me and is like, "Hey, we're still committed on providing this service, blah 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 blah. And if you decide to not do it, then you're going to have to pay X amount of dollars because you're breaking the contract." So I went to ChatGPT and I took that rep's email. I uploaded it into ChatGPT, and then I uploaded the master service agreement, the contract that I signed, and the data protection agreement that was all part of that whole bundle, right? Uploaded in a chat. I told chat the story. Hey, they're trying to stick me to this contract. They can't provide the services that we need. Please read through the agreements, and draft me an email in
Mm-hmm.
response showing that I'm not following through because they couldn't follow through. And the minute I hit enter, boom, like that, within 2 seconds, I had the full email
Yeah.
citing sections of all of the contracts, and spelling out like how I don't need to be a part of it. I was blown away. So
Yeah.
I copy and pasted that, put it right in my email, and sent it off.
Yeah, like this is a different level of a different generation of technology. But my father worked the same business for whatever 50 years or whatever it was,
Yeah.
40 years. And when he started work, he went to the library if he wanted to look something up.
Yeah.
Like if they wanted to go talk to somebody abroad, like he got on a plane. Like
Yeah.
that was like how you did business. And so
Yeah.
all of a sudden, like email completely transformed the business he was in.
Yeah.
And so like they massively were more efficient. And I look at this the same way. It's going to completely transform how we work. Now,
Mhm.
yes, sure, certain job categories will be like eliminated, but it's going to create all new
Create.
job types that never were, in existence before. And so I think like that's what's so fun about this is every
Mhm.
time there's like there's the washing machine, the TV, the internet, like, whatever, one day shipping. Sure, it eliminates some businesses, but it makes us so much more efficient and
Mhm.
allows us to
Mhm.
spend our time on new and cool things.
Yeah, I mean, I've said on the podcast before, like people back in the day thought that the printing press was going to destroy destroy society and get rid of so many jobs, but it created so much more.
Yeah.
Made more people literate.
Yeah, I mean, the one that is most recent to me is the sort of the retail apocalypse, where like everyone
Hmm.
goes, "Oh, if Amazon whatever come in, like every retail job will be destroyed." Well, not everyone went away; a lot did, but guess what? Amazon now hires just by themselves, I think, like 800,000 people in their warehouses, and every other company does too. And so it is a different job, but it's
Hmm.
massively, created a whole new economy for one day shipping.
Yeah, I was even like, uh, are you familiar with the movie Nosferatu that came out? Um, I was even kind of giggling at one point because when they sent that guy to um, you know, Dracula or whatever the characters to they wanted him to sign a new land agreement. So he had to
Mm.
travel 6 weeks to his residence to have this contract signed and then 6 weeks back, right?
Mm.
Now that's just, you don't think about it, but that's literally how it was done back
Yeah,
in the
yeah, yeah. I mean, so I think it's opening up new avenues, and I think like the in the like I say in these companies, a year ago I was saying it'll take 10 years for 90% of the interactions to be AI. Now, from what I'm seeing, the best companies in 2 or 3 years, 90% of the interactions will be AI. Like, and they'll have a massive structural advantage in the market because it's a deflationary force. Instead of spending
Mhm,
on 200 people in the contact center, that cost will go down 10x.
mhm,
And all of
mhm,
a sudden, that money either they'll lower their prices to the customer, they'll do more marketing, they'll update their product selection, they'll do other things with it that their
mhm,
competitors can't. So, in a situation like this where there's massive deflationary forces, if you don't get on the wave, like you're going to be completely cut out.
that's fascinating. What do you think that AI is because what is it? Mavlov's? No. What's the law where technology advances every 10 years? What is that called? Do you remember? Oh
Sorry.
man, I can't remember the name of it, but it used to be that every 10 years technology doubles in advancement.
Are you talking about the basically the rule where chips, Moore's law, where
Get Moore's law.
basically, yeah, on a chip, like I think it's like for a long time, like the power doubled and the size halved or something. Like I can't remember
Yes.
exactly. Yeah, but we've reached an asymptote for a while in Moore's law. They think now maybe quantum computing will take us back, but even that had its like whatever.
Yeah.
It slowed down.
I want to come back to the quantum part, but do you think that with AI you'll see that curve advance even quicker?
I don't know. I'm honestly not close enough to the research in LLMs. You read some stuff these days where they're saying, oh, like it's already started to slow down the pace of improvement. And other people are saying it's just a blip. Don't worry. Like the next models will massively continue to improve. So
Mm,
I don't know enough about the underlying pieces. From what I suspect, like I suspect that the people don't understand how powerful the current models are. So I actually don't think there'll be that many more improvements in the models. They'll continue to improve and iterate, but I don't think they have to improve a crazy amount to be able to handle the use cases we want it to handle. It's just about learning how to take the models and do specific things with them. So yeah, they'll keep improving, but it doesn't have to be a sea change for us to get great value out of them.
Yeah, and I think that as quantum computing, that's why I wanted to come back to this. As quantum computing advances, that's what's really probably going to be another massive shift in the industry.
Yeah, again, I wish I understood quantum computing better. Honestly, I don't. Like, I don't understand what the difference is between using an NVIDIA chip to train something and like the equivalent in a quantum computer. Does that give you some massive advantage to training a model? From what I'm starting to understand, training a new LLM is not actually that expensive anymore because of
Hmm.
some of the tools that exist. Like, sure, it's 50 or 100 million, but it's not billions of dollars to train a new model.
Hmm.
There's real innovation happening in the techniques that are being used and the strategies and like some of that stuff. But the actual like training, like the part that is being done by hard computer chips, is not unknowable anymore. Like that's pretty constrained. It's the real innovation will come in, like I said, new strategies, like when people thought of transformers and a new way to do that, or now when what's it called, DeepSeek, came up
Yeah,
with some new strategies. Like those are where you'll see the big steps in improvement, from what I understand.
yeah, that's pretty interesting. How DeepSeek kind of shifted that, where it's because open just ChatGPT or OpenAI is kind of all knowing of everything, right? And the way I understand what DeepSeek is, it's like they have multiple servers for specific subjects that they point to try
Yeah,
and get the info.
yeah, I think there was real innovation in DeepSeek. From what I've read, I believe that DeepSeek lied about not using
I've read
NVIDIA
that too.
chips, and
Yeah.
DeepSeek lied about the amount that it cost them really to go do this research. And I understand why they lied, because it allowed them to get more press about what they're doing. And I do really think they came up with real innovations that were very impressive that other people had not. That is all
Hmm.
true. But
Hmm.
I think it's a bit of a fake story that they magically did something crazy, so cheaply.
Yeah. So what are your plans for Regal? Where do you want to see Regal in the next 5 years in terms
Yeah.
of technology, and not only that, but also customer?
Yeah, so we're very, dedicated to helping these large enterprises, particularly in the US, improve the customer experience. So that's what I get out of this is, we're not some back end tool that disappears. Like truly, when I sit down with the head of, AAA's business, or the head of like whatever, a big bank or big healthcare system, they have millions of customers a year. And if we can just a little bit move that experience so that, again, like wait times are simple things, wait times are gone, the thing is handled, you always have somebody available, they really know about you and they care about you. Like we're making people's lives, really that much better. And so, that's my hope is, we love working very closely with these big orgs and trying to make these changes, and it's hard, but but we get there. And so yeah, sure, 5 years from now, if we have hundreds more of these big brands doing it, like I'll be very excited, in a very happy place. The part that's tricky in our industry is because there's these big contact center softwares that people are using and these big teams, it can be slow to move these companies forward. So
Mm-hmm.
uh, I'm hopeful from what I'm seeing with AI agents that this will cause the industry to quickly step up their game quite significantly, giving people a better experience. But yeah, if the fact of the matter is it takes 20 years to roll this out, that would be a shame. It would be a missed opportunity.
Right. And you said you started this 4.5 years ago,
Hmm?
and what were you doing prior to that?
So I was at a company called Angie that owns Angie's List, Home
Oh,
Advisor,
yeah,
Handy, all the big home services brands. So,
yeah.
we were there from about 1 million in revenue to about 1.5 billion in revenue. So I saw sort of what happened as the company grew. And, I think it's a good example where they've done some things amazingly well and empowered people to get more access to home services. And then there are some just real challenges in how to bring a business that is structurally built on trust and phone calls online. And
Hmm.
one of them was like, who takes the cost of all this customer service, right? I was talking with one provider, and he said literally after a job is booked, on average, a customer calls 15 times. Well, Angie can't take the cost of that. The pro can't do that forever if they want to scale their business beyond just one person who's very nice. So I think this is where new technologies have to play a role, and it's where I eventually like went and started Regal, where you need better tools to be able to change the mechanism of interacting with that customer so that they're not creating 15 human phone calls, because That would mean you have to charge the customer more. That would mean that you can't serve as many customers, so on and so forth.
When you started Regal 4.5 years ago, AI or Open AI was, I don't want to say it was rudimentary, but it was definitely, not what it is today. Did you have
Mhm.
challenges in trying to build out something that was beneficial with where AI was at 4.5 years ago?
Yeah. So when we started, largely, we had all the same underlying platform. So we connected with customer systems, knew what to say and what channel, but it was a human doing it largely because
Mm,
we played with the AI agents and they just were nowhere close. It wasn't until about a year and a half ago that we started putting AI agents really in the hands of customers and they were good enough. So it's,
mm.
it's a very recent phenomenon that we're materially changing from a human doing something to AI. Before that, largely it was still, we had a lot of, we still have smart automation and there's all kinds of stuff, but it wasn't AI agents at the end of the day. That's really in the last year and a half that that's shifted.
Yeah, that's so you're saying before when you started Regal, it was kind of it was human people handling a lot of these
Not, yeah,
interactions?
not our humans. A lot of what we had to do though is, hey, let's say we want to reduce handle time, like what's the IVR? Or if we want to
Mm,
speed up outbound calls, how do we make sure that happens with the right call at the right time? Or we want to make sure that they're saying the right thing, we have to give an agent a script, right? Or if we want to follow up immediately, how do you automate the text message follow up? Because it
mhm,
was how do you work with the human as the centerpiece. For the
mhm,
first time now, we don't have to work with the human as the centerpiece. We can work with the
mhm.
AI as the main interaction, where humans are handling only escalated issues and more complicated things.
So with your guys' model, since you're leveraging these different models, is every interaction that you guys are doing with customers or with leads, I should say, is it expanding your models to further train and improve the overall experience?
It's a great question. So we took a very hard line, and all of our agreements with the LMs do not allow them to train their models on our data and do not allow them to store any of our customer data. And the reason for that is not because you couldn't figure out how to do that. It's because legal teams are very scared of that possibility that like your customer data somehow gets into an LLM. So to make these deals move faster, we took a very hard line. I think it'll be interesting when 6 months to 12 months from now, we go back to all of our customers and say, hey, actually, there are real values to using your data to improve the model, even if it's only for yourself, or even if it's a reinforcement learning, even if it's not like improving the core model, but we have to change our contracts if you want to do that to something that's a new model where we can use your data to do some training as long as it's only benefiting you. And my guess is in 6 to 12 months, yeah, legal teams will be ready to have that conversation. Today, no chance. Like that's why we took
Right.
a very hard line and took something that was yeah, going to make legal teams happy.
Yeah, I mean, kind of going back to what we discussed earlier about creating new jobs. I mean, just that in itself, like the whole AI thing is with interactions and the legality and training off of data. That's a whole new landscape as well.
Yeah, yeah. And somebody was asking me the other day, they were like, if it's illegal to train off of like copyrighted data, like how did OpenAI get started? And I was like, do you really want me to answer this? Like,
Yeah, yeah,
like, it's like, yeah, the history of, of a lot of these things is is sort of San Francisco way, they just broke things. And eventually
yeah,
now they have real contracts and they do it differently. But at the
yeah.
beginning, there were some weird practices. But yeah, I think the exciting sort of cool aspects around using things to sort of train models will come, like because there is no reason that the legal teams won't get comfortable with it because the technology is capable of doing it in such a way that is safe.
Is most of your development team, is it offshore or are you guys in the US?
US, so we're New York based. We've always like been very big fans of New York more than San Francisco. That
Mhm.
said, we've always had teams abroad, so we do have teams in Europe as well. We find it's useful to have teams across time zones for always sort of moving things forward. We find
Mhm.
it useful to be able to hire different sorts of talent across different locations. So we do cover Europe as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing that more and more. It seems like there's just so much talent overseas compared to the US in terms of engineering and computer development.
Yeah, the story I always tell is not at Regal, but a past company. One of the founders was originally from Sarajevo, and he helped us hire a team in Sarajevo. And I remember the first time I went over there, I didn't know what to expect from the team, but they had all grown up in the communist system, and so all of them had literally like two or three graduate degrees, spoke five languages, like were so brilliant. And sure, they chose to do a computer science job for an American company because the salary was good and we could pay them more than other jobs locally. But
Hmm.
it's not that Americans couldn't be that smart. It's just very few Americans have that kind of background who then become software engineers. It's a different career path. But under the communist system where education was free, they were encouraged, like smart kids were encouraged to go and learn all this stuff. And this is the highest paying job they possibly could have. So,
Wow.
it's changed already. This was 15 years ago when we had a team there.
Hmm.
Now
Hmm.
already, like the landscape is quite different in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, I really appreciate you coming on. Where can everybody get a hold of you, learn more about Regal, all that jazz?
Yeah, so if you're interested in AI agents, if you have a big contact center, if you do a lot of calls, go to Regal.ai. You can always email us at hello@Regal.ai. And particularly, like I said, for enterprise clients, we offer free implementation. So, don't worry if you don't have time to do this. Like, we'll help you.
Awesome. Alex, thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you.